when we're dealing with a political issue as serious as this one, I think it's important to deal with the most typical occurrence of that issue. 98% of abortions are not from children. They're not from SA victims. They're from elective abortions. People essentially offing their kids on the basis of certain preferences they have in their personal lives. So what do you think about those cases? What do you think about the elective cases?
The way I view my political stance on abortion is basically if it can be avoided, I think that's the best case scenario. I don't want that to ever happen, but I think it's scary in a society where abortion is kind of on the brink of becoming illegal. I think that's scary because it's going to happen regardless. And I think it's just scary as a woman to think about,
Why does that scare you?
Because birth control is not cheap and accidents happen. And it's like, I don't want to live in a society where if I get pregnant in this economy, like I can't afford to raise a baby that way. And I think that's also kind of inhumane to raise a baby. And
so if you can't afford to raise a baby, you can off your kid. That's the principle you're operating under. Economy's tough. I can't sustain this child's life. I can off them. That's what you're saying?
I think it's also different, like early pregnancy as well.
No, I'm just asking you, is that principle correct? Is that how you are approaching this issue? If you don't have enough money in the bank, if you think that the economic situation is going to negatively impact you with a kid to raise, you have the right to off your kid.
Yes, but I don't like the term kid when we're talking about an unborn. You can even say baby or unborn child, but kid kind of,
Okay, your unborn child. You have the right to do that. Okay. Why? Why should you, on the basis of economics, have the ability to unalive the innocent being that is your kid? Your child, sorry.
I feel like it's more inhumane for them to be raised in I want to give my future children the best,
Okay, good.
And
giving your future children the best is not brutally unaliving them in the womb. It's not. I know you want to give them the best, but you're not doing it when you take away their life. Giving them the best might not even look like giving them every single thing that they have ever wanted in their entire life. It may not look like giving them an allowance every week. It may mean them actually struggling in their upbringing. It may mean you pouring out love in ways other than what is just material. There are plenty of ways, I promise you, that you can give your children the best that don't rely on economics. So if you say to me, well, I can't give my child the best, I'm going to off it. First thing I'm going to say is, no, that's not giving your child the best. That's getting rid of your child's life. So the second thing I'll say is, you don't need all the economics to give your child a good life. You don't need all of that to love your child.
Maybe I necessarily wouldn't go through an abortion myself, but when I say it's scary, I mean it's like the people that live in those situations where they might be in abusive situations or stuff like that, like that's putting that child in danger. And I'm just talking as a whole in America, like legalizing abortion, I think is scary,
Yeah, I get you think it's scary. I get that in your inner life, you say no to abortion. But in the outer life, what is the justification for abortion? In the public life, why are we allowing it? That's what I'm interested in, because this is a political issue, and I would like to see it banned. There is a way, and there's a methodology we can go about actually helping the kids, but helping the kids is not offing the kids.
I guess I'm kind of curious, like, where do you draw the line with, like, I'm sure, because you mentioned faith, I'm sure you believe life begins at conception, right?
I don't believe that because of my faith, but I do.
I just meant like I formed you in your womb, in your mother's womb, that verse, sorry.
I mean, if you're asking me, do I believe God created everything? The answer is yes, but the idea that human life begins at conception is not faith-based.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, let me ask you, how do you feel about, instead of people advocating for abortions, why don't we advocate for more federal programs to help these pregnant mothers that are in these situations, these unfortunate economic situations?
I mean, I feel like that would be great. I think that's amazing.
And why don't we do that? Why are we advocating for abortion instead?
Because I think a lot of women don't want to carry these unborn children to full term,
Do you think not wanting to is good reason to unalive another human being, right? I don't think that's a good reason. Because, like, if James said, let's say he had like a newborn kid or something, just freshly born, and he gets like an economic strike or something like that, and his bank account runs dry, and he says, "Oh, damn, I don't know, I can't take care of this kid. I don't want to anymore. This kid is waking me up at all hours in the night. I have to feed this kid all the time. It's just too much work. I don't want to. I'm just gonna off it." That would seem like really unintuitive, right?
I feel like, I'm not trying to sound cliche, but I have things I want to say. I immediately know the rebuttal you're going to say, like, well, it's her body, and I think if she 100% doesn't want to do something, she doesn't have to do it. But it's like, okay, well, I know y'all are just gonna say that's two bodies, So it's just like,
so what do you say to that, since you've thought ahead? Do you disagree with that? That's not two bodies?
I think at a certain point, yes.
Really? What point is that?
Like, before there's a heartbeat, before, I guess, as pro-choicers would say, like, it's a cluster.
So a heartbeat happens at like 28 days. Most women don't even know they're pregnant yet. Would you ban abortion before that point?
I wouldn't ban abortion, but...
Okay, well, you can't put a pole in the ground and say, it's separate here and this principle matters to me, and then say, well, no, that doesn't actually matter at all. We have to understand what you care about, what in this situation is causing you to have the views you have.
I think it's like what you said too. I have like a weird stance because like what I would personally do in my own life isn't necessarily what I want for like government regulation. You know what I mean?
Right. Your inner life, your personal life is directly connected to your public life. And if you wouldn't do something horrendous personally, maybe that means you shouldn't be doing it publicly. For example, if you personally think you shouldn't take a wooden plank and beat your child with it, maybe that should translate to the public life, and we shouldn't be doing that at all, right? Maybe we shouldn't be brutally beating our kids. You know what I'm saying? So there is a connection there. We live in a society, right? We all live together. So there's privacy, there's a private life, but there's also that public life, and we have to just discern what exactly you're able to do and not do. How do you justify your pro-choice stance?
So I found myself in a position where I needed to terminate the pregnancy in order to protect my own life. And what bothers me about banning abortion altogether is that you are allowing a third party, somebody other than the pregnant person and their doctor, to get involved in that decision. And
okay, so I give the medical exception. So if it's medically necessary, if that even is a thing, sure, you can have it. That's an exception for me. But how do you justify elective abortions?
And I appreciate that. The area that I get hung up on, though, is why do you have the right to know why I need to get an abortion?
Because you're offing a kid. It's not a inner issue. It's actually an outer issue. It's a public issue. You are offing a child. And when you are dealing with children, specifically when you're offing them, then that affects all of us, and we all get to have a say into why you're doing that.
So you're okay with killing a child to...
I'm not okay with it.
Life. But wait a minute, you said if it's medically necessary, you're okay with abortion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really believe it's ever medically necessary. I hear some pretty good arguments as to why it really never is, and that isn't an abortion when you're treating some of these difficult situations. However, if we have to save the mother's life, we will. I'm not going to make a woman self-sacrifice herself for a child. What I am going to do is I'm going to say, you cannot choose to unalive an innocent person for no good reason.
Okay, so you are acknowledging, though, let me make sure I'm understanding correctly, by your words, that you can, quote, off a child to save the mother.
For those cases, I am simply advocating that doctors view the situation as it actually is. So you view it as you have two patients, a child and a woman who is pregnant, right? And you treat both patients. if there is a case where you're going to lose the child's life, and that's a certainty, and you have to do something to save the mother, then you do the best medical decision possible. And there you go. But in every other case, there is no justification in my eyes to off an innocent human being in the womb.
So from my perspective, I don't think that anyone has the right to be involved in the conversation that I have with my doctor about my health care.
We do. If you got pregnant tomorrow and you decided in a few months that you wanted to off your kid, I get a say in that because you're offing an innocent human being in the society I live in. And I don't want that to exist in my society. That's disgusting and terrible. Can you justify the act of abortion? Can you justify the elective cases?
One of the top reasons that women seek abortions is because they economically cannot handle another child.
So your justification then, from what you're saying, is that we can off kids in the womb on the basis of economics.
Yes.
Why?
Because if a woman can't take care of the child, number one. Number two, It's also extremely expensive in America to carry and birth a child. I have a 7-year-old. Yes, my 7-year-old cost me $35,000.
So if you wanted to off your 7-year-old right now, why can't you? Let's say you are in a bad economic situation, you lose your job tomorrow, and you can no longer take care of your 7-year-old, and nobody else will take your 7-year-old and take care of them for you. Why can't you off them on the basis of economics?
That's a murder. That's murder. She's
the same thing in the womb.
We're asking you to justify why financial reasons are permissible to unalive other human beings. I think you and I will both agree that the fetuses in the womb are human beings, correct?
The fetus has the potential to become its own human being.
First of all, it's a human being. If it's not a human being, what is it?
It's a zygote, a fetus, an embryo.
What species are those? What species are those different developmental stages in?
Human.
So they're human zygotes, they're human embryos, they're human fetuses?
Correct.
How is it not a human being then?
Because it is not its own person. It's not.
I don't know what you mean by it's not its own person. It's literally biologically a human being.
So
it is of the human species.
If I take a zygote out of my uterus and put it outside of my body, it will stop developing.
Same way, if we took you out of your natural habitat, you will stop existing too. That's a movement, right? The natural habitat for the fetus is in the womb, right? That human being's natural habitat, and the only place on this planet where that will survive is inside of that womb. The only place or the only planet that you will survive on is here on Earth. If we took you out of your natural habitat, you will die. So that's just a moot point. What's going to be the justification for unaliving this other human being inside the womb?
That's the determination of the carrier.
Okay, so you think that the justification is because mothers say so?
Yes, exactly.
Why wouldn't we be able to apply those same principles in literally any other scenario?
Because there's not an equivalency between a child, my 7-year-old daughter, for example, and a zygote. They're not the same thing.
That's not what I asked. I said, why wouldn't we be able to apply those same principles that you laid down? Okay, let's just lay this out, right? You have human being A, human being B. Human being A is the fetus inside of human being B, okay? Now, if human being B decides to cut off their resources for human being A is going to unalive. You're saying that that's okay because human being B says she wants to. We're saying that that's unreasonable, and if we apply that same criteria across any other scenario, it would render some kind of inconsistency, or it's going to be extremely unintuitive to most people. So we're asking you, what's the justification for human being B unaliving human being A? Just saying that she wants to is not good enough.
So what do you mean by justification then?
Yeah, what I mean by justification is if you can give me a set of reasons based in some kind of rational process, like some kind of process of thinking and reasoning that's well purported by substantiated facts, then we can accept that. But all these things that you're saying, like, because she wants to, or, it's her decision, healthcare, you're just saying a lot of wrong things, none of which are justification in any rational basis whatsoever.
Well, I started out by explaining the economic impacts of pregnancy, delivery, and then parenthood. So
Yeah.
that's one.
No, it's
Another,
not. That's not a justification.
how is that not justification?
Because we don't unalive human beings on the basis of economic stability or instability. Never.
That's not a
That
human.
never happens. And we don't do that, right? I don't know why all of a sudden we live in a society now where that's permissible for human beings inside the womb, but that's never been acceptable across any society, or at least in Western society, I should say.
And this is where I don't know that we'll ever agree, is that I don't think that me ending a pregnancy is the same thing as me coming up to you and unaliving you on the street.
It is.
What,
In
what
principle,
is
it is.
This is a nuanced and complex subject. An embryo in the womb does not have its own agency. It is not its own person. A person outside the womb, so you, my child, anybody, that is their own. They have agency, they have sentient knowledge, that's completely different. I'm saying that we're not talking about the same thing.
Let's just accept what you said to be true. Person A doesn't have, they're not their own person. They don't have agency. Person B does. If I suffocated person A and person B, what's going to happen?
They're going to die.
So regardless of whether or not they have agency, whatever that means under your view, it's the same thing principally. One person ends up unalived. Okay? So now let me ask you, what do you mean when you say agency or person? What is a person? What is an agent?
So when you look at brain development, your hippocampus isn't fully developed until like well into your childhood. Your own unique individual who's not reliant upon a host body for your existence.
That doesn't apply to newborns.
What do you mean it doesn't apply to newborns? Newborns can breathe on their own. They don't require a host body to inherently keep them alive.
Newborns cannot survive on their own. They need some kind of help, whether that be from medical intervention or some other person to sustain their life.
It doesn't have to be the mother that does that, though.
I never said that. I said they need some other person to sustain their life. Newborn babies can do basically nothing.
Right. And so can a fetus. They can't do anything on their own.
That's our point. There's no difference.
Well said. Well said.
I have a serious question for you.
Yes.
I was just wondering, like, are you going to adopt these children when these mothers cannot financially take care of them? Or what about...
Would you, if I could adopt all of them, would you say I should?
I mean, you're commenting on it, so I feel like, yeah, absolutely.
So let's just play this out. I adopt 1 million kids. Do you think that would be good for me to have 1 million kids to take care of? Do you think that would be good for the kids?
I mean, do you think it would be good for a woman to bring a child into this world if she can't financially take care of it?
That is a good, yes. To bring a child into the world is a good in my view.
Okay, but if they
You're
cannot
actually,
be
I'm assuming you're going to be
financially
promoting
taken
the
care of,
bad, which is to off the kid. Which is
and
not
their
what I'm
needs
promoting.
are not being met, right? If their needs are not being met, because poverty is a really big thing in America.
But how does that have to do with abortion? I don't understand. Are you saying that poor people should be offed because they're poor?
No, what I'm saying is women should not bring a child into this world if they cannot financially take care of it.
Why?
That's what I'm saying.
Why should a woman make that choice?
Wait. Let's go with this, right? When it becomes a medical procedure is when it let's say it's an ectopic pregnancy, right? That puts the mother at risk. So therefore you're saying forget the mother, birth this child when this child can't even make it to 9 months. It's an ectopic pregnancy, so it's going to die.
Ectopic pregnancy, you can get treatment.
Pardon me?
In elective abortions, why does a child lose its life because of financial motivation?
Why does a child why does a child what?
You are telling me because a child is going to be born and be poor and have lesser conditions than your ideal conditions or whatever you're measuring and comparing these things to, that it does not deserve to be protected, that we should actually unalive the kid. We should take away its right to exist. I am saying that's wrong. Let's not do that.
Okay. They want to separate the rich from the poor, the black from the white, the LGBT from the straight community. It's all in their master plan. It all comes down to religion. Religion.
That's
control.
actually a really good point, the latter. Everything does come down to religion, in my view. Everything is theological in nature. but
100%. 100%.
but you still want to off kids, so that's not good.
I mean, I believe that in some cases it is necessary. Like the one girl was saying before, it is a medical procedure. Now, for people who think women use abortion as birth control, maybe some people do that. But honestly, a lot of women do not do that. Do you know how mentally traumatic it is for a woman to get an abortion? Like, honestly, I've never had one. I had my son actually 3 months early. He was born 1 pound, 6.5 ounces. And the hospital actually had the nerve to ask me if I wanted to keep him. And I said, absolutely. Because I grew such a bond with him growing in my body, right? I grew a bond with him.
Are you pro-life?
personally
What's going on
imagine.
here?
This is why I have an IUD. This is exactly why
Wait,
I have
are
an
you
IUD.
pro-life? You are saying that the mother is attached to the child. You're saying you would never get an abortion. What am I missing here?
I'm saying that I'm just not going to comment for other women. I'm not going to say
Why?
what I think other women should do and what they shouldn't do.
Why? Why are you guys so scared to speak out against what you know is wrong? Don't be scared. Just
Because
speak.
I
what-
don't think it's wrong
What, okay, so
at all. Do I think it's wrong? Everyone has a choice.
She thinks it's
of
wrong.
whether
Wait,
or not.
hold on there, Pablo.
In
thinks it's
Washington,
wrong.
you're allowed to off yourself after 6 months of a terminal illness. Is that right or wrong?
I just
would
don't-
say that is wrong. We shouldn't allow people just to off themselves, but people might have different opinions.
Everyone has a choice.
I want to talk to Shoddy. Okay, we've talked to you already, Jose. Shoddy, what is the deal here? Do you think it's right or wrong?
do I think it's right or wrong? I think it's wrong in some
Okay.
cases. In cases, I
Right.
think it's okay. Like if there's an ectopic pregnancy or if it's life-threatening to the mother. That's when I think it's okay, when it's absolutely medically necessary to do it.
That you just sound like pro-life with medical exception. That's fine. So why don't you speak out against it, right? We get that it's an unpopular opinion, and we get that you're probably going to get berated for it. You might lose some friends. Your family might look at you sideways. Your coworkers might look at you sideways.
It's kind of a lot, okay?
Doesn't matter. You're still standing up for what you
Yeah. No,
believe
you're
is
right.
wrong.
You're right.
That's what matters. That's what we do, right? When we get on these lives, we get berated every single day in the comments. People are making fun of our looks. People are making fun of whatever they can get their hands on.
We
It
get
doesn't
death
matter.
threats. People DM us different threats
Yeah.
to us, our families.
Well,
Stuff
that's
like
that's
that.
going to happen with the internet and doxing. That's just going to happen. Are they going to do anything? Probably not.
Well, but the point though is that
Hopefully not.
what's important is to be able to stand up against what you believe is wrong. You have to do that. You
Oh,
can't
I'll
just sit
always
back.
stand up for what I believe is wrong or right. I mean, but that doesn't mean my opinion's right. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that
I
I'm
would hope
right.
it's
And I
right
don't
if
know
you have it.
everything. I'm not one of these people that's going to come on here and tell you I know everything and try to give a bunch of scientific bullshit because I don't. And now
Right,
I'm
but
really-
you live in a society and you have both your private life and your public life. And we are just
100%.
simply saying that if you have this private view that abortion is wrong, then why aren't you having that publicly? Why don't you say, if it truly is wrong, if you truly believe in your inner life that abortion is not good to do, you would never do it, why would you allow other women to do it? Right? Except for the exceptions. How does that make sense?
I see where you're coming from. I see your point. I do. Honestly, you've really made me reconsider a lot of things, and you've really made me think about it.
Look,
Good.
and I want to say this, that you are the guest. People like you are why we do this. We don't get people like you very often who actually take the time to like reconsider and rethink like their beliefs. But people like you are the reason why James and I do these lives every single day. Even if it's 1 out of 10,000 guests, even if we just get one guest like you, it's worth it.